Welcome to the Brain Body Fit podcast. I'm Dr. Jerome Rerucha. I'm here to help you cut through the noise of fads and quick fixes and focus on proven strategies for optimizing your health and peak performance. Join me as we explore regeneration, anti-aging breakthroughs, nutrition, and the power of improving your physical and mental strength to unlock your brain and body's full potential. Welcome, everybody, to the Brain Body Fit podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jerome Rerucha, where we try to bring a three-dimensional practical insight into a lot of major topics that are going to affect your health, whether it's physical, chemical, emotional, and nutritional. And today, who we have here is Jon Petersen, who's the developer and owner of LifeBase Nutritional Systems. And we're going to have a great conversation with Jon today. We've been friends for a number of years. I've used his system in our clinic. It is a total game changer. My background was a strength coach prior to being a clinician, so food has always been a very major part of what we do to try to help people, whether it's an athlete or a patient trying to restore their health. So any type of disease condition reversal that you're trying to think of, obviously, food is one of the many components, and to manage that with patients, we know a lot of things as coaches and clinicians, and the art of that is to get our people to have enough of an understanding that they feel confident in moving forward and really help them get a big picture. And the better educated the person, I've always had the experience that the better the results were. And so do we get the normal version, I guess, without a software program like we're going to learn today? It was a lot of pressure on the coach. And it was so amazing when I did get to start seeing this system. I was just blown away initially. When I first saw it, I was like, wow, this isn't just a high-level academic person. This is a guy who has done thousands and thousands of professional supervised meal plans for people, of how this was structured. I was completely blown away at the intelligence of how intuitive it was, but yet practical of how it was to take this incredible subject of nutrition, which arguably there's only two things more confusing to people, and that's politics and religion as far as their biases and bases. And nutrition, oh my gosh, could you go down a rabbit hole and people get fired up and mad and angry about all sorts of different aspects, but it shouldn't be that way. We should really be on the same page. There's different metabolic factors that are very important, and we want to pick a system. And so I'm going to introduce Jon Petersen. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your initial background, and we'll get going.
Well, appreciate it, Jerome. This should be fun. Appreciate the kind words. I don't know how genius this will be, but we'll give her a whirl. So my name's Jon Petersen. One of the founders, there's many, of LifeBase Solutions. We basically wanted to start a program that would help us from a nutrition coach. And to give you a little background of how we got started with this is I spent 14 years in corporate America, where I was building CRM solutions, or helping build. I was the actual director of pricing. And so I had a pretty good basis in database programming and how a CRM solution could help you organize and be more efficient. So somewhere around 15 years ago, my wife says I had a midlife crisis, decided to get out of the corporate rat race, and I kind of was self-taught from a nutrition and supplement world. After I got done playing college basketball, where I'd never lifted a weight, I decided to lift weights. And so I bought into a multi-level marketing company, took supplements, and promptly put myself in the hospital, which I'm a bit of a reader. So I decided that I maybe ought to learn about what I'm putting in my body. And that's where I began the journey of really going down the nutritional pathways. Not only from supplements, I realized those were just a part of it, but from a nutrition perspective. And so that's kind of where my passion came from. So when I left corporate America, I got back to that, and I bought into a franchise system for supplements. I love the supplement Not so much the franchise, but I love the way in which their quality. I was well rehearsed in the quality of supplements. They did everything right. I love their PhD biochemists that handled all of this. And we started a supplement store. And from there, we were capable, and what they encouraged was to get certifications in nutrition in order to help people with macro plans. I did that. And it became very apparent to me as I was running a supplement store that when people are coming in, a lot of people would be asking us, what I want a pre-workout or a protein. But that was actually few and far between. What they're really asking for is help. They needed help with the nutrition, what to take, why to take it. They really wanted to change their body composition. Most people will call it losing weight. We try to stay away from that because we really don't care what the weight is as long as our composition is good. So he started doing nutrition plans and helping people out, and that kind of really expanded. And when we first started, we didn't have all the devices that we do today. And it became real apparent to me that it was like, wow, I really think we could hone in on this and be able to predict how many carbs, proteins, and fats people need and when they need to make changes to their meal plan in order to get them to progress on their body composition goals. And that's really where it started. I can get to the, a little more things that caused me to spur that out if you want. It really, if I just go into it a little bit, there's really two people that were really heavy. And, we were taught to give them a certain amount of carbs, which is really what I'd call low carbs in today's world. And they lost 30 pounds. They went from like 350 to 320. And then we stalled, and we'd seen this over and over before. And it occurred to me that one of our devices, while not as sophisticated as today, it would show us their muscle mass, and it would show they were losing muscle. And it always alarmed me at how much muscle these people had, even though they're a bit on the heavy side. And I thought to myself, well, you know what? I bet you they just need more food. And we started feeding them. And so we were up to like 350 grams of carbs, and boom, all of a sudden we were down to 270 pounds. We're down 80 pounds. And it occurred to me that I'm like, so when you feed somebody good food, they actually need to eat a lot. And it was kind of amazing to watch because, even to this day, it's hard for me to see a 5'3" female that's 51 years old work her way up to eating 350 grams of carbs, and that's the only way that she burns body fat, right? Because if you're on the internet, you're going to see that that's counter, and all the keto people, fasting, I don't have anything against those, but they would say that you can't eat that many carbs, and I'm probably be able to show you that we can prove that that's not the case. It's really the quality of food that you're putting in. And the more you feed the body and the more the metabolism recovers, the more you have to eat in order to lose that body fat. So that was kind of our background of how we got started, a little more detail, if that helps.
Absolutely. And let's hit a pause button there a little bit, because I'm sure some of the listeners right now, where they're hearing this, and these are people that they're either clinicians, they're clients, whether they're athletes, they're people trying to overcome a condition. And so they are probably pathological learners. They're out there, they're hearing a lot, they're reading a lot, they're trying to do a lot. And one thing that they commonly hear all the time is low carb, low carb, low carb. And just to be clear, we're not against low carb. We understand that metabolic pathway. And we're not going to get into all the negatives if you believe that or not. But ultimately, what we're talking about here is data analytics, to where it's not a philosophy alone. It's not somebody pigeonholing people, but it really is. It's what does this person's individual metabolism, where is it right now? What do they need to fuel their body healthy? If we fuel their bodies healthy, how is it going to heal? And ultimately, we want it to optimize their metabolism. So ideally, they do lose fat, but the focus really is on trying to make them healthier. So that's a lot of what we want to talk about in today's podcast, and just a general overview of how LifeBase allows us to do that, how we can get data analytics to where we can very accurately get people started. And it's not shocking. People are going to have a lot of questions, especially if they are led to believe that low carb is the only way to go. And make no mistake, you can do that. But we do want to talk about more of a balanced diet here. And this is not some revolutionary way of eating, even though it's been suppressed ever since the internet age, truly, because it really parallels very significantly when the internet really started taking off and the low carb understanding and method of eating kind of took off. So it just got to be so one-sided, everything you hear of low carb, low carb, low carb. But one industry that you and I both come from, even though we do a lot in the clinical world as well, is the strength, fitness, and athlete world. And that world never completely bought in 100% to keto only, because athletes know you need carbs for energy, recovery, and everything just works a lot better. So it really got lost to the average person. And even when we talk to professionals, there's a lot of people that have a lot of questions and they're not getting the results they want. So having a system of LifeBase where they have an amazing educational program that goes into it, but it's the day-to-day, where I know when I first started using this program as well, and we see this reproducibly with others, it's not just us, but you've been doing this for a number of years already. So anybody who does nutritional consulting and structured meal plans to the level you're talking about, they can do about 30 active clients in a 40-hour work week. And you see those people once a week, every week repeatedly, and you just build on the success that you have, educate them, and move them forward over a time period. So seeing 30 people at a full-time position, you can do okay. It's a lot of work. You might not feel like you're getting paid for the amount of work you're putting into it. And just based upon your system that you've developed, you have a single coach that is able to coach hundreds of clients at the same time without sacrificing any quality and actually doing a lot better job. But it's exactly that data analytics in terms of proving to people they're not just losing weight if that's the goal or the need, but they're actually maintaining and even gaining muscle while they're losing fat. And that is what should be the goal of any program as you're trying to heal the metabolism, even if it is weight loss. Of course, there's people out there that do want to put on weight even. And that's also involved with this. It's not a one size or just pigeonholing people into a system. It allows the coach to really meet the individual's needs, but it's a system of education and a system of practical application that helps people no matter where they're at. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you in terms of explaining, again, the detail of the system and what's the start and how you got to this.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. When we started this, we set out to we had to set criteria, and the criteria of success for whatever diet we were choosing. We've tried them all, at least hundreds. Some of them maybe not thousands, but at least hundreds of all different types of diets. And the criteria was you need to maintain or gain muscle, you need to burn body fat, and you need to improve water ratios. And we'll probably get into the water ratios here in a bit. But those were the three criteria. As far as I was concerned, I'm not really coaching somebody if I'm not improving those three criteria. I could just feed them less, right? And their water ratios will go up. They'll probably burn some muscle. And for at least a while, they'll probably burn some fat. Not in every case, but in most cases. And to me, they didn't need to, pay us to help them. If that was the case, go do that on your own, or you could go to any number of places and get that. So the whole premise of this started with the muscle, the water, and the body fat when we got a hold of the InBody 570. It was kind of funny because our franchise system had created a partnership with InBody that we could put these scales into our stores and monetize them. And I'd already kind of had this hypothesis that intracellular, extracellular water could help me see whether somebody's eating enough, too much carbs, not enough fat, whatever it may be. And so I had made a call. They'd had what was called an in-body 230 at the time, and it did not have the intracellular, extracellular. So I wasn't really interested in a $4,700 purchase, but I happened to go to their website and find out that they had a medical grade device. And so I called and I said, well, I don't want the 230, even though I'm with this franchise that you have an agreement with. I want the 570. And it was funny because it was like they were trying to talk me out of it. They're like, why do you need that? That's for hospitals and professional sports teams. And I'm like, what difference does it make? I'm like, I'm willing to pay you the $12,000. I didn't know what I would find, but I kind of had a hypothesis that we'd be able to figure some of this stuff out more accurately if we were seeing what happens with water. And eventually, I think he just got tired of me and said, fine, you can buy. And as far as I know, I was the first to own the medical grade device, that was not a medical company, so to speak, just a supplement store. And so from there, once we started getting the data, we took 10 people that we did free plans for. And, of course, when you get started and you get excited and you're getting results, you think you know everything. And you have to get humbled many times. And so now, as I've gotten older and seen about all the stuff I can possibly see, it seems like you realize that the more you know, that we actually don't know that much about the body. A lot of people get a little bit of knowledge, right? And all of a sudden they think they know everything. And especially with the body, you just are never we probably know a fraction of a percent of what actually goes on in the body. But those 10 people took off and the results were dramatic. We were increasing carbs. We had a husband and wife duo that were on low carb, 60 and 30. And he was approximately 24-25% body fat. 4 or 5 months later, he was eating almost 600 grams of carbs a day, and he was ready for the cover of a magazine. He was like 6%. And he'd gained muscle, burned fat, completely cut up. And these are people that are in their 40s, by the way, at the time. They're in their 50s probably now. But this isn't, a 21-year-old. And then his wife, who had done some figure shows, she was like 34%. And I think she got to like right around 18% on there. Sorry. That was the kind of the beginning of when we had the LifeBase data. And we started those 10, and then we started putting everybody on the in-body data or in-body scanner. And lo and behold, it was like we were checking these people in that were kind of using our old way of doing things, and they were burning muscle. Yeah, they were losing weight, but they were burning muscle. And their body fat percentage would go up, right? A lot of people don't realize that body fat percentage is nothing more than pounds of fat divided by your weight. So if I lose water and muscle and my fat didn't move, my percentage goes up. Well, they don't like it. Before I could kind of hide it, right? It wasn't visible. Now all of a sudden I have this scanner that's giving this really cool professional looking report. I see you got it up on the screen here. And they're going, well, what's going on? And it was kind of like, we got to figure this out. Our business, we have a lot of people doing these plans for us, checking in. And if we don't figure it out, they're going to quit. And, some of this was just survival. We were selling supplements. We were a big store, and people were getting mad when they weren't getting results. So we began building these out. The funny thing about it is, Jerome, we did not advertise one time. And in 1 year, 2 of us that were doing these did, I believe it was 1,534. That number always sticks in my mind. Somewhere in that neighborhood of all these plans, and we couldn't support them. We were now losing clients because, as you said, they got to check in. They've got to come in. They want you to review their food. I had to do it manually. I had to look at their scan. I had to read the scan. I had to talk to them. So it was a half hour to 45 minutes. Some people like to talk a lot, which I get. I'm one of them. And lo and behold, it was like we were dropping the ball trying to support our clients. And that was kind of when I said, okay, I'm pretty sure I can build a CRM solution that would handle all this, and we could integrate the in-body data to feed into it. And I'm pretty sure the algorithms that we're using, I could probably automatically program those in. And so from there, we began the system. And as you know, it's changed dramatically from the early days when we had beta users, and our group of coaches that had come with me from the franchise system that were all expert coaches, do phenomenal things. I'm sure you'll probably interview them at some point. They joined in and we got started, and what it looks like today is, of course, not anything like what it looked like when we first began. But
yeah, even 5 years ago when I saw it for the first time, it was amazing, and it has taken a lot of, I guess you'd say, progress, but I almost don't even want to say that because it was so spot on when I first started using it. Now, of course, with some of the coaching, and of course, the management of volume of people, and then how we educate people, which, again, that is all those components, I don't even know which is the most important. So for people who don't know what an InBody is, so this is a completely separate company from LifeBase, but it is the only bioimpedance machine currently that does allow to connect into the LifeBase technology system. And so that's what it looks like there. And if you can't see that, we'll have this available in the show notes in a bigger format. So this is a medical grade bioimpedance scanner. They have different levels to these machines that are available. And then just to the left of it is a readout that it gives us. Now, there's a lot of data on that just as it comes from InBody, but even beyond what InBody does and looks at this, Jon, in his algorithm, that will get connected through webhooks and iCloud directly to the app if you were the coach to use this. And by the time the person stands on that scale and they get their weight and it actually reads their body composition, which probably takes about 60 seconds total, by the time they even step off the machine, the information automatically imports into the coaching portal of Jon's specific LifeBase Solutions program. And so write that in there. If it's the first appointment, you set the criterias, you do a whole kind of a history of the person, do they work out already, some basic things, so you kind of get some ideas of what their calorie expenditures are due to activities. And immediately the app will factor all of the proteins, fats, carbs, sugars, fibers that they need for their current metabolism. And you also set goals for them as well. Do you want to lose 10 pounds? Do you want to gain 15 pounds? What's your goals? Are you a wrestler that needs to cut weight? Are you a type 2 diabetic? And again, if you're not a clinician, you're not treating diseases per se, but you're just setting up professional healthy eating with them. And what this does is this takes away all the fads, all the gimmicks, and literally just teaching people quality of foods is number one, and then certain quantity of quality of foods. It absolutely transforms your metabolism. And until you have a real professional coach that walks you through these things, just by reading basic keto books or eat this, not that, go on a plant-based diet, take this magic supplement and everything's going to work out better, you really can't understand how effective and efficient the body is and how predictable the body is. So there's a reason the people that have done this longer than I've been alive, they can get fighters at a healthy weight and they know the exact second of the exact day, even when the entire program is a 10-week program to get them there. So there is a science and a method to the madness. A lot of that was a secret when you take it to that level where they're combining all food groups, protein, fats, carbs, and none of these are, carbs are bad for you, so it's out, or protein's bad for you, or it's out, or any of those things that a lot of fads and gimmicks does. And until you really get to witness that and and experience this and manage it. So you have all the data in front of you. You know what that person has eaten, how often they're eaten, and you're coaching them through this whole thing. And then how the changes happen weekly. It is really one of the most aha moments, whether you're a coach and you care about what your athletes are putting in their body, and you know at a certain point in time, you just can't keep training. There's a difference. All of a sudden, you got to start doing that nutritional component to really get the benefits out of all that good training you are doing. And if you're a clinician, this is literally the foundation of everything, whether you're trying to prevent disease, whether you're trying to reverse disease. I don't care which disease it is, whether it's autoimmune, whether it's muscle wasting, it's osteoporosis, it's immune breakdowns, it's just chronic pain. To know what people are putting into their bodies and help them make realistic changes every week, it is nothing short of miraculous in some cases for patients. But truthfully, it's just like we're just applying basics, like it really is. I know I get it so many times. It's like, oh my gosh, how come somebody hasn't told me this before? This makes so much sense once they get into it for a few weeks. And it's like, I don't know, thank goodness for Jon Petersen that he took the time to do this, because it was a monster task that anybody who looks at this and knows anything about programming or works with people knows and can appreciate how much work you put into this. This episode is brought to you by LifeBase Professional Healthy Eating Systems. We all know intuitively that the food we eat affects our shape, our health, and our performance. But every day we're inundated with new quick fix diets or gimmicks that claim magic promises and for most failed results. Nutrition really shouldn't be this confusing. LifeBase is the solution that promotes eating real food and optimizing your individual needs without fads, gimmicks, overhyped supplements, or fake prepackaged foods. LifeBase Solutions is a complete system helping anyone know what to eat, when to eat, and how much to eat. The LifeBase system offers medical-grade body composition, client education, and state-of-the-art data analytics to optimize your individual needs and achieve maximum outcomes, complete with live coaching from a credentialed professional with experience. Go to lifebasesolutions.com to learn more and contact directly. Whether you are a client looking for coaching or you want to start your own LifeBase professional business, eat better, look better, and feel better. lifebasesolutions.com. If you are interested in personalized health programs and want to work directly with Dr. Jerome Rerucha, schedule a paid consultation to apply for starting a 3-month professional supervised healthy eating program. Also available are individual comprehensive restorative care program options with additional lab testing and services. Head over to PerformancePractic.com or simply click the link in the description to learn more and apply.
Yeah, it's definitely been a lot of work, but not just individually from me. There's a whole group, a host of people that are responsible for building all of what we have now. I think the funny thing that you mentioned was the whole, I'll use the term diet loosely here. A lot of people think we've created some sort of, diet that's got specifics. And in truth, this isn't our diet. It's just kind of what we've deemed as the correct way to eat. It was fundamentally, the macros are built off of what's called exchanges. For diabetics, they probably know what the exchange is. It's been around since, I believe, 1969. And it gets modified a bit for healthy people that are non-type 1 diabetics. And so there's a few rules around it, but ultimately, in the loosest sense of the word, no food is off limits. It doesn't mean all food is going to benefit you and you're going to get results. But, before we even started this, we used to use, the good old Excel spreadsheets, and we'd have drop-down lists of foods. And what you found out is everybody could do that for about 2.5 weeks. And all of a sudden they're like, yeah, I need different foods in here. And of course, time management becomes a problem, right? Unless you're charging hundreds of dollars, you don't have the time to sit there and craft. So we began teaching them the actual macros so that they could learn their foods. And I would, all the data that we collect in order to understand that fiber is really beneficial to us, and drinking water and sleep, all of these different things, all of it is great. I thought we'd have the greatest did you know database you ever saw, and it could be invented. And the truth of the matter is the people that succeed, they have one thing that's really in common. Not that they don't eat good, they do. They track their foods. And It's not something that they have to do for a lifetime necessarily, although a lot of people still do. We have several customers here that have been with us since the very beginning and never seem to leave. They're pretty self-sufficient at this point. But tracking your foods and learning what you're actually putting in your mouth, once you start teaching them, it becomes a game changer, because now they know how to manage when they learn to manage over time. If I have to go out to eat, you're probably going to go over in fats. Your sodium's probably going to be high. Sugar might be high, but you can learn to not have a 180 car train pile up, eating. And so, your body will be resilient. When they go to a picnic, they can learn to make better choices. And so from a standpoint of really what we look for in the consumer side is, hey, we're going to teach you over time what we've taken years to perfect and learn. We're going to shortchange it, and we're going to show you how that you can do this on your own, making your own good changes. And lo and behold, I think when you do a good job and they see the services provided, that people stick with their coach. And which is also another interesting topic, right? I'll use a sports team as an analogy. We don't spend a lot of time, even in high school. Like, this always bothered me from day one when I got interested in nutrition. I'm like, you leave high school and college for the most part, unless you specialized in nutrition, you really know nothing about nutrition. We've joked about this before, but one of my best females ever, the first 2 weeks she came in, she was so excited because she thought corn was protein and eggs were carbohydrates. And that's real life. That one's extreme, but you see that all the time. And so this is really the whole system is designed to educate the consumer and allow the coaches to be able to coach. So a lot of the things that they would need to do without this system are done for them in order for them to save time so that they can spend more time. From a football perspective, right, in the high school to college, if you're on a sports team, let's use football, you've got an offensive line coach, an offensive coordinator, a quarterback's coach, a running back's coach. You go to the weight room, you got an assistant that's working with your group, you got the head strength coach, you got all these different coaches, and including a head coach. But on nutrition, most athletes, unless they're in a huge program, and even then it's probably skeptical, they don't have a coach. Why wouldn't they need a coach? If you're a strength and conditioning coach, right? I presume that you just they checked in with you at the door and you said, good, go lift weights, lift hard. You actually were coaching. And most people, they require that. And the best part about it now is that you have real empirical data that shows results. Sometimes doesn't go your way, but at the end of the day, you got data now that can allow you to try and hone in on each individual's needs and figure out this is precisely what these people are going to have to eat. It can get kind of crazy with what you can learn from just watching the data and seeing how different foods affect people. I know you've got experience with this, but I always joke, and I'm serious, but I don't think anybody believes me, is that 14 years ago when I started in the supplement business, if you'd have told me there was gluten sensitivity, I'd have told you that was some made up disease I didn't believe in. And karma struck, and I definitely am gluten sensitive. That machine will kick up my extracellular water whenever I eat breads, whenever I eat something I shouldn't be eating, I swear. I get swollen hands. Now that I've gotten older, I'm arthritic in my hands. When I eat that, as soon as I clear it out of my system, I'm done. I'm fine. And so, you learn to evolve and let real data decide, what the factors are and what need to be changed.
So with the good examples you're mentioning, and previous to that, you said you got a whole team of people. And with your team of people, these are coaches that had to go through your formal educational program. So people don't just get to buy this online and take off and run with it. Like, there's a standard that you have set, for this, to where people really could get that ground base from you guys, and of course what they already know. But as we both know, because we've both done a lot of teaching on metabolism and specifically using this program, myself included, it was very refreshing to be able to use this as the foundation. We knew a lot before, we helped a ton of people before, but this was a total game changer as far as managing, educating, and ultimately empowering the consumer, whether it's an athlete or a client in the clinic. And it was just so different. So some of the helpers that you have, like just to give people an idea, this is not just used in athletics or just specific athletics, but you have high schools that are administering this. You do have specific teams within schools, whether like it's just the football team that bought it or it's just the wrestlers that bought it for their use. But it is going into curriculum in some schools because the people who are using are like, oh my gosh, this is so much better than what we're teaching the kids, and it's so much more applicable, especially as you could do the hands-on as a class project. And there is no substitute. I tell all my athletes and patients that we do this, like, think of this as a class. Like, you are going to learn more about nutrition just from doing this than any class you've ever taken, I promise you. And we do have people that hire us for their coaches who have graduated Stanford and Duke for their functional medicine programs, which does include some nutrition involved in those things, and every single one of them just astronomically learned so much. So you've got wrestling coaches that have been with you for years and years doing this. You've got some of the large diabetic groups out there that come to you and are using your system in order to do this. Of course, any sports team at any age, this is a game changer to bring people through it. But you're really involved heavily into that clinical market, the athletic market. Of course, there's corporate wellness values coming up here. And when everybody even wants to talk about the importance of like micronutrients and lab testing, like all of that can be integrated with these things. But ultimately that foundation, when you can get people to truly eat quality foods from quality sources, there's so many micronutrients in that food, even just truly kind of simplifying it and talking about the macronutrient ratios and the requirements of protein, fats, carbs that people need. But underneath that, when you are helping them eat and choose healthy foods to achieve those, they're getting a tremendous amount of micronutrients in there also. And then, of course, like we also couple it within our clinic with a lot of functional lab testing. So this has been an ultimate game changer, and it actually makes everything we do with our lab testing programs and supplements so much better. So I don't know if you even just want to give the one example, because a lot of people are always like, well, what I do works, and we're not saying that at all. We know there's a lot of things that works. Then it's also what we say, well, compared to what? And we want to get world-class results if the people will at least be world-class compliant, of course. But a lot of people think they're always trying to do the best, and they are. They're just truly missing data. And that's where the difference is. Hopefully you take us through a little tour here pretty soon. A picture's worth 1,000 words in terms of, what the coaching portal looks like. Just briefly, I showed people, what the in-body scanner looks like, and very briefly, what the sheet. We're going to go over that in detail at a different time, not in today's appointment, as far as what the sheet means and how it relates to any demographic for any reason in terms of where healthy eating is the objective. But so from this, nobody's done more consults than you. So whether you want to talk about, early on, one of the real neat reinforcements was the wrestling team there in Iowa that used your program. And one reason I mention that is everybody's training hard. Everybody's getting really good coaching. Of course, some schools are better than others, and you see how they place over time, the amount of trophies, titles that they get. But this is a great example where you're at a very top level competitive industry. And how can you become so dominant when nothing's changed except one thing, implementing a healthy eating system to a sport that does have weight requirements and very clear metabolic requirements?
This episode is brought to you by PerformancePractic TV. All types of practitioners and patients who want to know more about natural healthcare love to subscribe to PerformancePractic TV. PPTV is a cost-effective, password-protected, online extensive library of training videos for clinicians and staff, as well as general consumers looking for direction and solutions to help themselves that can be watched from anywhere on your favorite Wi-Fi device. Education and training include Dr. Jerome's 3D brain body mapping exam and correction system. This involves identifying multidimensional asymmetries through a comprehensive approach. Once the imbalances are identified, extensive hours of various proven corrective methods are the focus, including the research, physiological mechanisms, along with hands-on instruction, including regenerative cold laser therapy, adjustments, soft tissue, when to use orthotics, pulsed electromagnetic frequency, whole body synchronous vibration, corrective clinical exercises for general consumers and competitors, as well as detailed nutrition and healthy eating to optimize your metabolism for healing or performance. Understanding the physiology and application of guaranteed healthy weight loss, muscle gain, and strength improvements for the look and quality of life outcomes you desire. In addition, there are numerous lab testing examples that apply to having more energy, hormone balance, immune enhancement, correcting digestion, brain health, understanding mechanisms and solutions to become pain-free, toes to nose, and discussing the limitless science and integrative protocols of anti-aging, including peptides, cell therapy, exosomes, and more. New content is added regularly. As long as you are subscribed, you continue to access all the materials. Subscribe today at watch.performancepractic.com.
Yeah, and certainly wrestling's unique in that requirement. Maybe the MMA fighters, boxing, someplace where you have a weight class.
Yeah.
But just touching upon a little bit about what you had suggested there with our team, we had, one of our original coaches that's a partner in LifeBase is an ISSN. The other ones worked with the wrestling team you're probably referring to. He works all across the state of Iowa doing actual meal plans. Just to clarify, I'm talking about him doing actual nutrition plans, utilizing the software as a client. Same with one of our partners in Nebraska, has worked with colleges and football teams, and the data is just remarkable because, of course, you're not going to get 100% compliance. And when you look at the people that comply, the kids that comply, and you summarize the data, and you look at the kids that kind of complied, and you look at the kids that didn't comply, it is night and day difference. Any coach can see it. They love seeing the data. It makes a world of difference on the sports teams. But, from the other aspect that you alluded to is we call them channels. The primary channel we deal with is the gym and personal trainers. That always made a lot of sense to me because kind of like in the chiropractic field, which is another channel, everybody knows their trainer's the best. Everybody knows their chiropractor's the best. They're the ones that have the influence at that point in time. So it was always like, this just makes sense to bring a nice program to these people that are running businesses that kind of fits with what they do. They already got the credibility built up. So, we wanted to build that solution to handle those channels. We've talked about the sports teams. There's high schools that utilize this in multiple different ways. There's colleges. There's tons of athletes that might be at any of our independent coaches all over the place. I just got called on a scan from she is an Army Ranger and is like 18% body fat, 175 pounds. And they're wanting to gain weight, and I'm looking at this chart going, holy cow, that is really cool. So it's got, wide ranging application. It doesn't matter whether you're an athlete or 50 years old, just wanting to get in better shape. It works no matter what. And the reason it works is there's no substitute for healthy food. There just isn't, right? When you learn what's healthy and why some things are maybe not, and maybe they're just not for you, it makes a world of difference because over time you're going to make those choices and they get better and better. And a lot of people start out and they're not perfect at it, but they do improve. So there's lots of channels. The one that's most entertaining to me is that we're working on solutions, as with an independent or a home device that actually has the medical grade data for us. We're hoping to launch that somewhere in March to make it available so that I know you work around the country with patients, you would be able to actually utilize that scale. They can purchase the scale and it feeds the data automatically when they measure in the morning right into your system, so you have access to it. And that's a big piece that's required for us to do a lot of work within corporate wellness. I'm part of the corporate family, right, for 14 years working at a marketing company or finance, in the finance realm of handling the CRM solutions. I had we'll call it the privilege of seeing the HR come to finance with lots of different wellness programs that they wanted to purchase for the employees. And it always drove me up a wall when I looked at them, because there's nothing to them. I'm like, what does this do for anybody? If they gave you $40 off your health insurance, 60% of the people would sign up. 40% would say $40 ain't enough to go through that crap. And so always in the back of my mind is I was like, man, I could create a program that would actually work for corporate wellness and give people the benefits of actually getting healthier, and it's measurable, not just, and I always joke about this one too. We've probably had this, talk about it, why the in-body scan is so important. Not that it does feed all of our data, and when you combine that with our food, our technology is pretty wicked in what it can do. But ultimately, people don't really have an idea. If you go ask an average person that walks in and says, what's your body fat percentage? They're going to underestimate it by a lot if they're not accustomed to going to the gym and working out, and they're not one of those people that are totally into it. And that body fat percentage, as you know, is so crucial to your overall health. What is it? $4.2 trillion spent on healthcare a year, and 90% of it is related to obesity disease. It's like a crazy amount that you can attach to it. And so anything that we can do that, starts off from an educational standpoint, whether it be in the younger kids from 14 to 18 to college athletes, to the 20 to 70-year-olds, we have all ages across the board. And there's lots of different coaches that have their niche, and work with different types of people, or predominantly different types of people. We have CrossFit gyms, so they predominantly work with CrossFitters. Like, for example, my store that licenses software, I would say I haven't looked at this for a while, but I would say our average age is probably 42. And I always say, well, that's about the age your kids are starting to get older, and now you start prioritizing your health again. So that's a popular age, but it doesn't matter what your goals are. I've said this before. One of the guys that runs the program in my store is, built like a Greek statue, and people will come in and ho-hum around about, well, I want to get healthier and I want to do this. And I always have to say, it's a good thing I have self-esteem, because I'll make a comment and go, yeah, I don't need to look like him. I'm okay if I look like you. So I always laugh and go, well, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Good thing I have good self-esteem, but I'm under no false illusions. I'm not going to look. Those years are beyond me.
Well, they're probably not, but you're putting so many hours in helping people at this time. So we need you to do that. There is nobody that can do what your job is in this. This would not be made possible without you. So why don't you take us through? Can you pull up the...
Yep, I'll share. I'll just kind of give you an idea of, like, this is just a customer that started. I don't do nutrition plans much anymore. This was a favor for somebody, and it's kind of an interesting case. I'll caveat this: not everybody gets these type of results, and that's not why I'm showing. I'm going to kind of show you the amount of carbs, because it's a little alarming how we make changes and what happens to it. And just for the record on here, he's perfectly okay with me sharing his data on here. I could blur it out so it can't be seen, but he does not care. He shouldn't care. He should be very proud of what he's done. Okay, so this is just real quick. I don't want to bore everybody with all the system stuff here. There's many people that can demo this a lot.
This is really important. So whether you're a customer, like you're either one of my athletes or your athletes or one of my patients in the clinic, they are very impressed in terms of the organization. I mean, when people do get to see this behind the scenes, when they do come into the office and we show them this, like, they know, wow, nobody has ever had a system like this that has managed my individual needs. And that goes for athletes as well as patients. And then if you're the coach, there's nothing out there that helps you organize your business without losing track of the individuality of each person either, in terms of what their ratios of healthy eating are and the different likes that they have. So go ahead after that too.
Yeah. So Adam came to us on August 1st. You can see his start date. He's not actually canceled. We're in the midst of transitioning to the new platform. So he shows up on the old, I'm on the old platform here. All this is the same. So he's that way Cade could continue to work throughout the day, but I'll show you his stuff and kind of explain what we see. And so you just have an overview here of each of your client if you're a coach, and you can see that we have different performance metrics, their customer profile information. This is where you would see their meal plans set up. We have the ability to create multiple meal plans and assign them to different days. Most people don't need that, but in certain cases for competitive people, we might do that. Wrestling, bodybuilding, MMA, something like that. You can set up, you can do this in multiple ways. This is just one way to adjust their times from an eating perspective. They can also do it on their app. The compliance board, this will be interesting because Adam's been on a 2-week, his best friend down in Florida is getting married. So he took a 2.5-week vacation, went to Florida. So we'll see what his scans look like when he gets back. So he said he's not going to track until he gets back. I think he comes back this week. But we'll give you an idea of his in-body indicators here. Now, Jerome was showing you were showing the nice report that kicks out from the in-body professionally. We also take the data in for the data we utilize, and we graph it out here. And I'll go back in time here a little bit, and we'll take him back to, if we go to 8.1 on here. So he gets
to interrupt you. I do apologize, but just so people can kind of see just this part of the tab, how it does. The in-body sheet is fantastic, but how that gets imported into the LifeBase app is way easier for the coach to read and means way more even to the patient. So why don't you just kind of gently just scroll through? You don't even have to narrate every single category, but just so they can kind of see even these main categories that you are going to go through. But I think if they see it up front, it kind of gives them a perspective of what we're about to cover. And right now it's like, oh my gosh, look at all those lines. What does that even mean? But with this slight tutorial, it is so easy and intuitive. You're like, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So the general twist is once you're set up in the platform, we have all of the connections done. As soon as they jump off of the in-body, all their data is being automatically imported into the system. So we'll get a notification as a coach. Like if I'm not here and one of my clients was to scan, I would get notified on my phone that there's a new scan available for me to review. And, our guys can look at them too. So, I personally don't use it that much anymore. But it's very handy for people that are busy and, say they're teaching class, but they have people coming in the morning and they're scanning and they don't have time to talk to them. Now they can go in, they know they've scanned, they can communicate with them. But this is just giving you the general twist and, the interesting piece of what our technology does and that's different. Lots of people could create these type of systems, but this guy starts out at 252 grams of protein, 390 grams of carbs, 95 grams of fat. And you'll notice that he does pretty well as he gets started here, dropping weight, gaining muscle mass. And this is the part that you were alluding to with the metabolism, right? Now we begin a drop in skeletal muscle mass, lean body mass. And what do? The average coach, I would bet you, on the internet will tell you that he's eating too much food. You're going to have to drop his foods. And in reality, what we did is we actually increased carbohydrates. And you can see that along his chart here, he's increased all the way up to 540 grams of carbs. If we look at his body fat, that's down on 11/23 before Thanksgiving. We were down roughly 52 pounds of body fat. And the entire time, as our data system, the analytics dictated, we were increasing carbohydrate content. So it's pretty cool just how that, affects. And I know you're familiar with like the scan summaries. So it makes a scan Oops, I got to put a regular date in there off of that. So automatically the coach gets to see this little summary that shows them what happened with their results. It will suggest changes to the coach. Coach is up to them whether they do it or not. I'll argue that 97% of the time you should probably listen to the algorithms, but they're, it's giving them the feedback. So the coach doesn't even, we want all of our coaches to get educated. We want them to know how all of this works, right? I want to be able to glance at a chart and see the picture of what I know what's happening with this person long-term, but that takes time. That's part of our educational process of the, first 4 weeks of training before they even get on the system. But this is telling them carb quality is great, right? This is a tremendous reading. No suggested changes for this week other than check your carb quality or sodium. No suggested changes. So it's giving them little answers and little hints along the way so that they know what to do. But on top of that, we're constantly educating our coaches to understand how these changes would be made. It's one thing to rely on the algorithms, and maybe one day with AI, that's getting a little scary, what we can incorporate with that. Who knows? Maybe we don't need the coach to know anything, but as now, I think it's good. But you can just kind of see the trends that this guy's making. And then, I told you he's been gone here on his vacation. So if I go back here, let's actually just go back to give people an idea. If they're watching, you can see this. Got to move the.
So just while you're doing that, so when we looked at that graph that Jon just had up, every single dot that was on it is a weekly scan. So we do prefer people, especially at the beginning, I make it mandatory that people scan every single week because they have a lot of questions. They're eating differently than they ever have before. A lot of people think, oh my gosh, this is so much food. And it can be that way. Everybody's different, but again, we're talking a balanced diet here. I know Jon threw some pretty big numbers out there, especially with carbohydrates. So some of you are going, oh my gosh, you're going to give them diabetes. And it's like, no, not when you understand this. This is not a new method of eating. So number one, the people that do this professionally longer than Jon and I have been alive, and it's not just for athletes. This works great for regular consumers too, but this type of concept has been around a long, long time. Again, if your life revolves around what you put in your mouth, and that's how you're going to get paid, depending what type of athlete you are, this makes complete sense to you. And there's a lot of people that have made their living doing this, but again, it was kind of a secret because this is their job and they protect their territory a little bit. So Jon's really the first person to computerize it at this in-depth level of understanding how you balance protein, fats, carbs, fibers, and sugars in order to make these big metabolic changes. And Jon, again, he's linked with a lot of clinicians over there. He has a tremendous amount of experience with the registered dietitians that he has on board, all the different coaches, myself in a clinical setting, we talk all the time. And there's nothing I love more than when the patients actually have the blood sugar monitor on their bodies. And I get a lot of people that are very sick. Half the people we do, they're supposedly incurable. They've been to all the specialists. They are type 2 diabetic. They have high blood pressure. They have high cholesterol. They're on all the meds for 10, 25 years before they come see me. They want to start making changes, and right away, I know what they've been told and we discuss, but they have that blood sugar monitor on them and they are shocked that their blood sugar under normal circumstances can shoot up to 450 different times of the days, and we start giving them more carbs than they've ever had in the last 10 years, but they're quality carbs matched with other quality foods, and within 1 week, they go from 450 as regular to 250 is the biggest spike they have, and within a couple weeks, everything harmonizes so significantly, and it's just metabolic balance. So don't get lost in the numbers. Some people start at a low amount of carbs because they have such a broken metabolism, so much high body fat, so low muscle. You get smaller people or just more injured metabolisms, they may start with 150 grams of carbs and then they stair step up from there. So don't get intimidated by the 350, 450 grams of carbs you guys saw. We'll get into that in later episodes.
So you'll kind of see what's happening with Adam, right? This gives me the first month. As a coach, I can now go in and summarize this first month and say, okay, how did we do on protein? Actual, we went way over. Carbohydrates on there, we were over 30 days, we were short about 300. That's perfectly fine, right? Fats, we were just under off of that. Sugars was really good. And then notice one that I'll tell you makes a big difference right there, right? Out of 186 meals, 174 of them, he hit his fiber goal of 7 grams. Fiber's magical. And so you see why he drops 50 pounds. And if I want to look at one of his foods and go like to breakfast here, right? And most people don't eat like this. And Adam's just a normal dude. He works for the city. Like he's not like out and about. He sits all day. But, for breakfast, I didn't know this was going to show chicken on here, right? But he's eating his quick oats, his chicken breast, and an egg, right? And so he ate what I would call super clean, for quite some time, and would get results. And when the general premise of people that are afraid of carbs, when it comes down to it, a processed carb or a Twinkie at 50 calories is not the same in the body as a sweet potato at 50 calories, right? Or a potato or a bowl of rice. Or vegetables, just not. And so, as you pointed out, he didn't start here. Adam was a big man to begin with, right? So I'll be honest, when I started him, I looked at him and I said, look, I really don't know where I'm going to start you. I know what the algorithms will say, but I think you're going to need more than that. Just looking at the amount of muscle mass he has on him, that's like top 10 in the system across the country, not just our system. I think we're going to start you here and see what happens. And then it doesn't really matter, right? Because the data dictates to me whether it's working or not. Now, we got lucky and he got tremendous results right off of the bat. Like he just boom, because he kicked into gear right away. So I would equate that to he did not have a lot of damage to his metabolism, that we had to spend time correcting. And so for 4 or 5 weeks, we didn't have to make any changes. He just kept plugging along. But you can see a summary here as a coach, right? So it basically allows me to keep tabs of my client, all of my clients in very short order. And I can message them from here, but I can see whether they're doing what I need them to do, versus just guessing. So you can see his summary any way you want. And if you want to go through and look at his meals, it grades every meal from 1 to 5, 5 being the best. And so it'll go based on the macros there that, we don't have the food quality quite up and running yet, but there'll also be another grading system similar with food quality in the future, near future, hopefully on here. But it shows, you can tell, right? Blue is good. Red means you probably want to look at it, right? You see the zeros here. Now, more than likely, he just forgot to track, didn't type it in off of there, but you can see how well he scores 5s. And when you want to do that, very few people will not get results. When you're eating real foods and getting 4.5, 5 stars on every meal, you're going. Yeah.
I mean, even when people start out, I tell them, look, we're not looking for valedictorians. This is not the nutritional church of hell. We do not pigeonhole you into, you have to do this, that it's totally monotonous. We give them some variety, but you do have to, we start coaching you, and Rome wasn't built in a day, but quality food's a big deal. And then no matter if you're eating quality food or unquality food, we still have to hold you within certain ratios. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. They want to tell you, oh, I eat healthy. And I'm like, well, what's something that you eat? Like, just give me a typical breakfast. Give me a typical, they're like, well, I have regular Cheerios because Honey Nut Cheerios has too much sugar, and I have an orange juice and a banana. And it's like, well, they can be all real foods, and it doesn't sound terrible, but those people are starving for macro and micronutrients if that's your typical breakfast. And sadly, that's better than most. And even you made the comment two, as you looked at the gentleman you just showed us and like what his fiber content was. So when people first start this, even if they've had some success doing things on their own, they start finding out they have huge imbalances within certain categories. And one thing as a coach, when you get to look at this really quick, we want to look at their protein, fats, carbs, and even the quality of food with that. But when we just go over a little bit, and Jon said fiber is magic. So a lot of people would say, oh, I'll just take a fiber supplement and I'll get my magic that way. And it's like, once again, the more good holistic food you're eating, the more fiber it's going to have in it in many instances. Now, rice is a very good high quality carbohydrate, very high quality carbohydrate, and it's naturally pretty low in fiber compared to a lot of other things, especially compared to oatmeal, sweet potatoes, regular potatoes. But general rule is when people are eating their food, they're hitting their protein, fats, and carbohydrates properly. And when you can see that they are hitting their fiber, and also coincidentally, their sodium is going to be in a good line. So if you just look at these scans and you see where their sodium is way over the top and they have low fiber, right then and there, they're eating poor quality of foods. And we want to give them very productive responses to this, not just, you're doing this wrong. And so this really helps us educate and build on these things. And the amount of details that just through just using this baseline that are covered, you could never, ever, ever do this without using this system. It would be impossible to track all these things.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, you could technically do it, but you're probably
but you would do
three clients.
You would do 2 people in a 40-hour work week.
Yeah.
If you were doing it at this level.
We tried. So just finishing up here, the coach can set up goals. This is going to be a little kludgy because I'm in our old system here. So I need to create him a new goal because he blew away from that first goal. Dawn's on me, right? I didn't actually set it up. And I need to, but we'll get a new one when he starts here.
Yeah.
You can control, like I showed you, the compliance, the performance metrics. You get to the overview if you want to look at different things that are on there. There's tons of data for the coach to be able to look at. And, more importantly, it gives the coach the ability to utilize that data and communicate with their client in short order. Right. You can use the texting app that's built down here, communicate, track. You can send them a that boy, nice job. Or you can say, hey, quit eating donuts for breakfast. We need to get something better. However you want to communicate. But I think what that really helps from a coaching perspective for the consumer is that most people just want some accountability and know that somebody's got their back. And so the more you communicate with them, the more that they feel like you're invested into them. So we made it really easy to communicate. And on top of that, we've taken a lot of triggers that we communicate for the coach automatically through a text or a phone message on there. If certain things happen, like if they hit a certain percentage of their goal or they haven't scanned in a certain amount of time, we're sending reminders. As we send different nutrition tips and motivational things that are scheduled out. And certainly the entity's got control of all of that through our CRM solution. They can dictate whether they want to use all of it or part of it or modify it themselves. But I would always encourage people that the vast majority of people really just want to know that you're there looking out for them. And now, instead of just being motivational, trying to say, hey, how's it going? I hope you're doing well. You literally got all the data to see exactly what's transpiring with their eating habits at this point in time. So it gives you the best ability to maybe influence them to make the changes that are needed in order to accomplish the goals that they've set forth for themselves.
Absolutely. I know my wife, when she's an accountant now, but when she was a trainer, and she again had years and years of training experience, and therefore helping people eat better is always going to be a part of, even when you're physically training people. And she talked about one of the biggest aha moments for her immediately was, when you meet your clients and in between sets, you're just talking about other things other than the workout. And it's like, okay, what'd you have for breakfast today? Or the people start getting really excited and they go, oh my gosh, I got to share with you what I had for breakfast today. And she's like, okay. And, once again, it's this person who they're excited about what they do, but, they had like some piece of toast and it was closer to white bread than anything that's good, such as like an Ezekiel bread even. They had orange juice, like a bowl of fruit, and they're all proud of themselves. And she would always have to be Debbie Downer and just be like, well, this is why that's not going to help you get the results you want, just how many unopposed carbohydrates and how much sugar they were taking and how low in protein, no healthy fats, or whatever combination there was there. I mean, you can change it anyway, but she'd say she had to be Debbie Downer. Well, now this way, the app scores every single meal and snack immediately. So as soon as they log their food, and you also get to teach them to log your food first before you eat it. So all of a sudden, especially in week 1, where this is what they would normally eat, and they go to put their food in their app and they're like, holy cow, I'm 230% over in the amount of fat that I'm allowed. I'm taking in 25% of the protein I'm supposed to have, and, wherever everything else is at. So immediately they start understanding, even though some of their food quality choices are okay, and this is what they would normally eat, just how far off of balance they really are just for one meal and snack. And then as you do that, but the greatest part is my wife was like, I don't have to sit there and constantly chip at them, telling them what they do wrong. And so now the majority of her coaching is always about providing the solutions. It's like, okay, well, here's how you're scoring. Here's why it is. And the app even tells them, well, why did I get such a bad score? It's like, you can completely see on each listing, it scores even on a separate screen that the consumer gets to see. How many stars did you get for protein? How many stars did you get for carbs? How many stars did you get for fiber? How many stars? All the macros, it scores them individually. So you may get a 5 on your protein, but you get a 1 on your carbs or a 1 on your fats because you're either way too over or way under. And in any cases, it's so self-correcting, and people do generally start eating a routine of foods. I mean, they do it now already. They're just eating a poor routine of foods. And when you can start making these corrections, it is one of the most fulfilling things I do in the clinic, because people heal when they're not in front of me. And the giant pre and post changes, it's easy to get lab testing changes. We do a lot of lab testing. We've always gotten great lab testing results, even when we were more supplements than healthy eating, because healthy eating was just so difficult. We could only do it with certain people. And, now you still get the huge symptomatic changes. You still get the huge lab test changes, but it's even more pronounced. The person is way more empowered. They're way more engaged. And you see epic pre and post changes, and even people that are just riddled by certain conditions and life-limiting health conditions their entire life, and how you can reverse those. It just helps you be such a better health detective or even a performance coach.
Well, and I think that comes to the one thing, right? A lot of people, the natural pushback is, well, I don't want to track my foods. And, that became obvious when we launched and we're asking them to track. And we've gotten pretty good at managing people from that aspect up front, because we literally look at them and go, how am I actually supposed to coach you if I can't see what you did? Like, I have no way of looking at it and helping you unless you track. So there's 2 reasons you're going to track your foods. One is, if I'm going to coach you, I need to be able to see it. You're essentially saying that you're not going to give me any game film to review to correct my mistakes. And 2, it's going to help you learn how to craft your foods by the scoring system that it gives you. And yes, it'll be a struggle for a little bit, but sooner usually rather than later, they start picking up on it and it starts to make sense to them. They see the pattern and they go, oh, yeah, this isn't so bad. And once they adjust to it, then it's generally speaking not a difficult thing. And when you look at it from the aspect that I do is, what are the traits that cause people to get good results? And you see the tracking percentages. Like, you could almost sort the number of people that have changed body composition and by tracking, and it's going to be in parallel with one another. And heck, I'm living proof of it, right? Cade, that's a Greek statue out there, same thing. If he's not tracking his foods, he's gaining fat. And you forget the things that you put into your mouth. And so it just helps from an accountability standpoint, to be able to do. And really from an educational standpoint, you got both of those going for you.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah. No, go ahead.
Well, probably about time. I know you've got a hard stop. You've got other clients and appointments you have on the backside of this. I don't want to cut you off right now, but I do know we're coming close to the end of the time that you have. This is one of those topics we can go forever, and we're going to have Jon on here as a regular person. Here pretty soon, we're going to have our head educational coach, Trevor Brown, on here. He is a ball of fire, and how he got into his job, he was just incredibly enthusiastic and very successful as a business owner, educating his own clients. And we knew he had an it factor to help educate other new coaches and doctors who wanted to come on board. So we're going to have Trevor Brown on here pretty soon too. And he's going to come at it from a little different perspective. So we just wanted you to get to meet Jon. He is the odor. He is the whole reason why this exists. He's being a little courteous. Yes, he does have help, but he's got a lot of great coaches over the years that have administered a lot of information, but make no mistake, it is Jon that makes this universe spin, and this universe would not even exist without his prowess in statistical analysis, computer programming capability, but just that thought process of literally taking an infinite amount of data and make it workable for very digitally challenged people. So we thank you for that, and hands down, it works. And me, I'm not a technology person. I don't like pushing buttons. And even when I saw this for the first time, but I understood healthy eating very, very well. And this still taught me a lot. But the difference was it was so worth for me to push the buttons, because I was doing this the only other way you can do it. And this was such a game changer as far as organization, and it was so intuitive as well too, in terms of how you push the buttons, even for someone like me that I despise button pushing. I'm not an app person. And hands down, the trade-off was game changing.
Excellent.
Well, so how do we want people to find you? We'll flash this up on the screen, even though it's not going to show up, right now. But once you let people know, and here again, you only have so much availability, so I'm probably just going to say, don't give them your personal info, whether you give them Trevor's at this point or whatever, But number one, introduce people, to the company website. They can see there, but ultimately, people need to get to Trevor if they're interested in being a coach. My clinic, no matter where you're at in the country, if you do want to be a client of this, we coach people all over. So my contact information will be at the end of this as well, for those of you who are interested in that. And even if you're interested in being a coach and you're hearing this, you can call me first. I can answer any questions for you before we do get you in touch directly with LifeBase headquarters.
Yeah, the easiest thing is LifeBaseSolutions.com. Our marketing guy is phenomenal and puts everything out there so that you can kind of see what the process looks like. It's obviously a very large system, right? We never touched upon all the CRM capabilities and all the automations and stuff. So it's not going to have everything out there. If you are interested in having a discussion about becoming an entity and coaching, you got your own set of clients, then that's the easiest place. You'll see Trevor on the bottom right corner, and you can schedule a call in his calendar, and he'll walk you through. He's a joy to talk to. I'm probably the boring one. Gets to play with the numbers. But that's great. If you're a consumer that's going, wow, I wouldn't mind trying this type of a meal plan. Same thing. You can go to the LifeBase Solutions there, and there's a registration platform there, and you can pick out a coach, or you can message Trevor on there as well and say, here's where I'm at. I mean, just for example, I got sent one yesterday morning that's actually a traveling registered dietitian. And I thought that they were calling me to sign up for an entity perspective and become a coach, since he was a registered dietitian. And he actually is just looking for us to coach him and not do the nutrition plan. But he did the same thing. He just registered right through the website. So it was kind of fun to talk to him and get him going. But I appreciate it. This is fun, and I'm sure we'll get into some more fun carbohydrate discussions as we move through and do more podcasts that'll get into the stuff that's really interesting.
Yeah, so definitely on the Brain Body Fit podcast, we're going to regularly be having guests at a number of different topics. Obviously, metabolism is a huge topic, as we always want people to heal when they're not in front of us, empower them. And it's no secret that obesity and improper use of food is one of the biggest problems in the entire world, as stated. So we all know these facts already. Around 75% of 18 to 22-year-olds cannot even qualify for the military because they're so overweight, obese, physically deconditioned, anxiety and nervousness, and that's just not normal. And the success we have, using this system, even on different medical conditions, I'm not saying this cures anxiety and nervous, those types of things, but when you take out the toxins, when you start metabolically fueling the body properly, everything changes, absolutely everything. And so that part's really exciting. And again, it's not just for young kids to get them really going in the right direction early, but it's for every single age group. And no matter how sick you are, if you're willing to do the work, put some effort, open-minded, take coaching, be a good listener and implement it, you will learn a lot. And it's not just about learning a lot. You will change. You will change in front of the mirror. Walking down the street, people will see it. Your weekly scans with the InBody will change. Your lab testing will change. And it is super exciting to see people go through those transformations. So Jon, thank you so much. You have a great rest of your day.
You do the same. Look forward to the next time.
All right, everybody. Thanks for attending the Brain Body Fit podcast. Make sure you check us out on our other website as well, where it's a big umbrella, PerformancePractic.com, where you can find out everything that we're talking about and even cooperative products to help you with your success, whether it's your clinician with your exams, healthy eating, different exercise equipment that comes in to help you remodel your people and do rehab with them. So really comprehensive what we're trying to do here, give everybody very practical solutions that work. So everybody have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Brain Body Fit podcast, where we are dedicated to helping doctors and clients integrate clinical evaluation and performance enhancement. Please like and share this episode with someone who wants to empower their own health and actively participate in the health revolution of the growing millions. Epic changes are real. Visit us at PerformancePractic.com, where you can explore premium selected products and services that we have used to change the lives of thousands in our clinic and seminars for decades. Follow us on our socials. All the links are listed in the podcast description.